"You're just a chef," she screamed, tears streaming. Her billionaire fiancé walked past her straight to me. "I've been trying to meet you for 6 months." My family went pale. "You're jealous and ugly." The crab bisque needed more sherry. I knew it the way I knew most things in my kitchen. Not from tasting, not yet, but from the color. The surface caught the light wrong, too flat, missing that amber depth that made people close their eyes on the first spoonful. I reached for the bottle without looking, muscle memory guiding my hand across the station. "Mira, table 7's been waiting on the amuse-bouche for 4 minutes. Firing now." My hands moved. They always moved. That's what 16 years in kitchens will do to you. Turn your body into an instrument that plays itself, leaving your mind free to wander through whatever quiet thoughts you've learned to keep company with during a dinner rush. I plated the bite-sized portions. Seared scallop, yuzu foam, a single, microgreen placed with tweezers. Not because anyone would notice if it was a millimeter off, but because I would. Some people think precision in cooking is about impressing others. It isn't. It's about the conversation you're having with yourself every single night about who you want to be. "Beautiful, chef." I didn't look up. "Thank you, Daniel." The scallops went out. The bisque got its sherry. The night continued the way nights always continued. In the language of timers and temperatures, of call and response, of heat and salt and fat and time. My name is Mira Chen, and I am a chef. Just a chef, if you asked my family. I should tell you about the moment that changed everything, but I've never been good at starting at the beginning. My mother says it's my worst quality. The way I circle around a story, seasoning it first, building the base before adding the main ingredient. She says it makes me impossible to understand. She might be right. But you're here and I assume you want to know about the party, about what happened when Julian Chen walked past my sister and came to me instead. Everyone wants to know about that moment. It was 6 months ago, and people still talk about it like it was something I orchestrated, like I'd been planning it all along. I wasn't. That's the part no one believes. My restaurant doesn't have a name on the door. This isn't pretension, though I know it looks that way. The building is a converted industrial space in a neighborhood that hasn't quite finished gentrifying, sandwiched between a Vietnamese sandwich shop and a place that repairs vacuum cleaners. The windows are frosted. The door is gray steel with a small brass handle worn smooth by hands. If you have a reservation, you know where you're going. If you don't, you're not getting in anyway. I opened it 3 years ago with money I'd saved working 18-hour days at other people's restaurants since I was 22. Before that, culinary school on a scholarship that required me to maintain a 4.0. Before that, my mother's kitchen, where I learned that food was the only language my family spoke fluently, even when we couldn't stand each other. We couldn't stand each other a lot. I am 37 years old. I have never been married. I live in a 1-bedroom apartment above the restaurant with a view of the building's industrial ventilation system. I own one good dress purchased 4 years ago for a James Beard Award nomination dinner where I didn't win. I have 32 employees who depend on me. I have a silent partner who I've met exactly twice. Once to sign papers, once to shake hands at the opening. I have a waiting list for reservations that stretches 8 months into the future. And until 6 months ago, I had a family who'd spent 37 years telling me I'd wasted my life. "Mira, I need you to come home." It was a Tuesday. I was breaking down a whole pig, which is exactly as involved as it sounds. My hands were slick with fat, my upon a canvas of evidence. The phone was on speaker, propped against a container of kosher salt. "I'm working." "You're always working." My mother's voice had that quality it always had, like she was observing something disappointing from a distance. "Your sister is engaged." I set down my knife, wiped my hands on a clean towel, picked up the phone and held it properly, the way she'd want me to if she could see. "That's wonderful news. To who?" "Whom?" "To whom?" A pause. My mother loved pauses. She deployed them strategically, little silences that allowed you to marinate in the awareness of your own inadequacy. "His name is Julian Chen. No relation," she added, as if I might somehow think my sister had gotten engaged to a cousin. "He's in technology, very successful. Your father looked him up. And we're having an engagement party Saturday. I need you to be there." I stared at the pig. Half of it was still whole, waiting for my attention, waiting for me to transform it into something worth caring about. "I can't leave on a Saturday. It's our busiest night." Miriam, my full name, never good. Your sister is getting married. Do you understand what that means? I understood. I understood that Lily was 34 and had been failing to get married for a decade. Each boyfriend slightly less impressive than the last. Each relationship ending with tearful phone calls to our mother about how men didn't appreciate her. I understood that our parents had begun to lose hope, had started quietly adjusting their expectations, had shifted their focus from when Lily gets married to Lily's career, which was a polite fiction for the various assistant positions she'd cycled through without ever advancing. I understood that a billionaire fiancé was a resurrection. I'll be there, I said. I hung up and went back to the pig. Here's what you need to know about my family. My father, David Chen, is a retired cardiologist. He spent 40 years holding hearts in his hands, literally, and somehow never learned how to handle the ones that beat inside his own children. He is a quiet man who expresses love through expectation and disappointment through silence. I've spent most of my adult life trying to earn words from him. My mother, Patricia Chen, née Morrison, is what people used to call a professional volunteer. She sits on boards, she organizes galas, she has a Rolodex, an actual physical Rolodex, she's proud of it, containing the contact information of everyone worth knowing in our mid-sized Midwestern city. She married my father when he was still a resident, which she mentions often, as if to remind us all that she bet on a winner before he was winning. And then there's Lily. Lily is 3 years younger than me. Lily has my mother's cheekbones and my father's analytical mind, which she applies primarily to assessing other people's flaws. Lily was homecoming queen and valedictorian, not because she was the smartest or the most beautiful, but because she understood early how to make people want to vote for her. I was never in the running. This is not self-pity, it's simply fact. Some children grow up knowing they're the favorite. Some children grow up knowing they're not. I grew up knowing I was something worse, forgettable. The first draft my parents made before they perfected the formula with their second attempt. You could have been a doctor, my mother said once, when I told her I was leaving pre-med for culinary school. You had the grades. I don't want to be a doctor. Your father isn't me. The silence after that sentence lasted 3 years. 3 years where my phone calls home went to voicemail, where holiday invitations came with conditions, where I learned to build a life that didn't require their approval. Then I got a James Beard nomination, and suddenly my mother wanted to talk. Not about me, about the nomination, about who would be at the dinner, about whether this meant I'd finally made it, enough to be worth mentioning to her friends. I read about your restaurant in the paper, she said, calling out of nowhere on a Wednesday morning. They said you're very exclusive. We have limited seating. Why didn't you tell me? Because you never asked. Because you made it clear you didn't care. Because I stopped hoping you would. I've been busy, I said. Well, another pause. Perhaps you could get us a reservation sometime. I thought about it. I thought about my mother sitting at one of my tables, assessing, judging, finding all the ways my life's work didn't measure up to whatever she'd imagined for me. I'll see what I can do, I said. I never followed up. She never asked again. The engagement party was at my parents' house, which is the kind of house that announces itself. Brick colonial, 4 bedrooms, a lawn that gets professionally manicured. I grew up in that house and never felt like I belonged in it. Too loud in the kitchen, too quiet in the living room, always, somehow wrong in whatever room I occupied. I took a car service because I knew I'd need an escape route. Walked up the front path at exactly 7 o'clock, wearing my one good dress, navy blue, simple, the kind of dress that says, I'm here, but please don't look at me. My mother met me at the door. You came. I said I would. Your hair. I touched it instinctively. It was up the way I always wore it, because loose hair and commercial kitchens don't mix. I'd gotten so used to the style that I'd stopped thinking about how severe it looked, how my mother always said it made my face too angular. I came straight from the restaurant. You could have stopped to change. This is my dress. A moment. My mother's eyes traveled from my hair to my shoes. A journey of assessment that ended in a small sigh. Well, you're here. She stepped aside to let me in. The party was exactly what you'd expect. 40 people circulating through rooms decorated with fresh flowers, drinking champagne. I could tell at a glance was expensive but not exceptional. Catering from a company my mother had used for years. Reliable, bland, the kind of food that exists only to be inoffensive. I found a corner. This is what I do at family events. Find corners, observe, wait for enough time to pass that I can leave without causing a scene. It's a skill I developed early and have since perfected. Lily found me within 10 minutes. Mira, she said my name the way she always said it, like she was disappointed it only had 2 syllables. You actually came. Congratulations. Thank you. She was glowing. There's no other word for it. Lily had the look of a woman who'd won something, though I couldn't tell if the prize was the man or just the victory of finally getting engaged. Julian is wonderful. You'll love him. Where is he? Oh, he's not here yet. He had a work thing. He's always so busy. She said this with pride, as if his absence was evidence of his value, but he promised he'd come before the party's over. That's nice. It is. She tilted her head. How are you, Mira? Still cooking? Still cooking, as if it were a phase. As if at 37 I might have finally grown out of it. Yes. Mom says your restaurant is doing well. It is. I've never been. You never invited us. Because you never asked. Because the last time I suggested dinner, you said you weren't in the mood for ethnic food, even though I'm not sure what ethnicity you were referring to. I cook French techniques with Asian influences, which apparently is ethnic. Because every meal I've ever cooked for this family has been followed by my mother saying something like, "That was interesting," in a tone that suggested interesting was not a compliment. You're welcome anytime, I said. Maybe for my bachelorette party, Lily laughed, delighted by her own joke. Can you imagine, my friends at your little restaurant? I could imagine it. I could imagine Lily's friends, the women she'd collected, over the years, women who looked like her, dressed like her, laughed at the same things she did, sitting at my tables and taking Instagram photos of food they wouldn't finish. Something to think about, I said. You're funny. Lily touched my arm, the gesture performative, for the benefit of whoever might be watching. I should go mingle. Julian's parents are here, and I want to make sure they're having a good time. Of course. She drifted away. I stayed in my corner. Here's the thing about being invisible. You see everything. I watched my mother hold court by the fireplace, entertaining Julian's parents with stories about Lily's childhood accomplishments. I watched my father shake hands with men he clearly wanted to impress, his posture a little straighter than usual, his laugh a little louder. I watched Lily move through the room like a hostess, even though the party was for her, making sure glasses were full, introductions were made, everything was perfect. I watched, and I waited, and I thought about the car service I'd booked for 9 o'clock. At 8:45, the front door opened. I didn't know who Julian Chen was. This is important to understand, because later everyone assumed I did. Assumed I'd researched him, stalked him, somehow engineered what happened next. But the truth is simpler and more embarrassing. I don't follow business news. I don't read the pages of magazines that feature tech billionaires and their strategies for success. I barely know how to use my phone for anything other than calls and the occasional supplier email. So when Julian Chen walked into my parents' house, I saw just a man. He was tall, taller than I'd expected from the word billionaire, which I'd always associated with small, nervous men in expensive suits. He had the kind of face that could have belonged to anyone, pleasant without being memorable, except for his eyes, which were scanning the room in a way I recognized. It was the way I scanned a kitchen, looking for what was wrong, what needed attention, what wasn't meeting standard. Lily crossed the room to meet him. She kissed his cheek and took his arm and began introducing him to people. And I went back to watching the clock, calculating how long I had to stay before my car arrived. And then something strange happened. Julian Chen stopped walking. He was in the middle of the living room, surrounded by people who wanted his attention, and he just stopped. His head turned, and he looked directly at the corner where I was standing. And for a moment I wondered if I'd done something wrong, if there was something on my dress, if I'd somehow become visible without meaning to. He said something to Lily. I couldn't hear what. The room was too loud. I was too far away. But I saw her face change, just slightly, just enough. Then he started walking toward me. You're Mira Chen. It wasn't a question. He said it the way you might say the sky is blue or water is wet, a statement of fact. So obvious it barely needed voicing. Yes. I've been trying to get a reservation at your restaurant for 6 months. Behind him, I could see Lily frozen in the middle of the room, champagne glass raised halfway to her lips. I could see my mother watching from the fireplace, her face carefully composed. I could see my father, for once, looking directly at me. "We have a long waiting list," I said. "I know, I've had my assistant call every week. They keep saying there's nothing available. There usually isn't." He smiled then, not the kind of smile that asks for something, but the kind that acknowledges something, a shared understanding, a recognition between professionals. "Your tasting menu, the one you do in spring with the ramps and the spot prawns. I had it described to me by someone who managed to get a seat. They said it was the best meal they'd ever eaten." "That's very kind." "They said you make a sauce, something with miso and brown butter. They said it shouldn't work, that the flavors should fight each other, but somehow in your hands they don't. They said eating it was like—" He paused, searching for the right words. "Like hearing a song you've always known, but never actually heard before." I felt something shift in my chest. Not attraction, I want to be clear about that. But recognition. The recognition that happens when someone sees your work not as a product or a commodity, but as what you meant it to be. "I call it melody sauce," I said. "It's not on the printed menu. I only make it when the ramps are perfect." "When will the ramps be perfect again?" "April, maybe May if spring is late." "Then I'll wait until April." Behind him, Lily had started walking toward us. Her face had that look I knew well, the look she got when something that was supposed to be hers was in danger of slipping away. "Julian," her voice was bright, too bright. "I see you've met my sister." He turned to her, and I watched something flicker across his face. Not coldness, nothing so obvious. But the warmth he'd shown me didn't extend to her. I wondered if she noticed. I wondered if he knew she would. "You didn't tell me your sister was Mira Chen." "She's a chef." Lily's hand found his arm, possessive. "She has a little restaurant downtown. Very hard to get into, apparently." "It's not little." He said it mildly, but I saw the correction land. Saw Lily's smile falter. "It's one of the most respected restaurants in the country. 3 James Beard nominations. A feature in every major food publication. I've been told by people who know about these things that she's a leading candidate for a 3rd Michelin star." The room had gone quiet. Or maybe it had always been quiet, and I was only now noticing, now that everyone was looking at me. "I didn't know that," Lily said. "She never talks about her work." "Because no one asks," I said. It came out before I could stop it. The words just fell out of my mouth. 20 years of accumulated silence finally, finding a crack to escape through. Lily stared at me. Julian looked between us, calculating something I couldn't read. My mother materialized at my elbow. "Mira," she said, the warning clear in her tone, "I should go." I set down my champagne glass, untouched. I hadn't taken a single sip, and reached for my phone to text the car. "Congratulations again, Lily. Julian, it was nice to meet you." "Wait." Julian reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card. Simple, elegant. His name, a phone number, nothing else. "When April comes, I'd like to be the first to know." I took the card, slid it into my clutch, and walked out of the party without looking back. My car wasn't there yet. I stood on the front porch, breathing the November air, trying to understand what had just happened. The door opened behind me. "You're jealous and ugly." I turned. Lily was standing in the doorway, mascara smudged, champagne sloshing in her grip. Behind her, I could see shadows moving. Our mother, probably trying to manage the scene. "Excuse me, that's what this is, isn't it?" Her voice was rising, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You can't stand that I finally have something you don't. You had to come here and ruin it. You had to make him notice you." "Lily, you're just a chef," she screamed. "You're just a fucking chef who makes food for people you'll never be." I should have been hurt. Maybe I was hurt, somewhere under all the layers I'd built up over the years. But mostly what I felt was tired. Tired of being screamed at by someone who'd never once tried to understand my life. Tired of being the villain in a story I hadn't written. "I know what I am," I said quietly. "I've always known." "Then why did you come? Why couldn't you just stay away?" "Because Mom asked me to." Lily laughed. It wasn't a nice sound. "Mom asked you to because she felt obligated. No one actually wanted you here. No one ever wants you here. You're just the embarrassment we have to explain." The door opened wider. Our mother stepped out. "Lily, that's enough." But it wasn't. I could see it on Lily's face. All the years of being the pretty one, the popular one, the one everyone wanted, suddenly threatened by a single conversation with a man she'd thought was hers. "She's always been jealous of me," Lily said, turning to our mother. "Ever since we were kids, she couldn't be what you wanted. So she ran away and pretended she didn't care, but she cares. She cares so much it's pathetic." "I'm going to go now," I said. "Good. Go back to your little kitchen and your little life and leave us alone." I walked down the front steps. My car had arrived. Black sedan, engine humming, the driver not looking at the scene on the porch. "Mira," I turned. My father was standing at the door now, having pushed past Lily and my mother. His face was unreadable, the way it had always been, the way I'd spent my whole life trying to interpret. "Dad." He walked down the steps, stopped in front of me. For a long moment, he just stood there, and I thought maybe this was it. Maybe this was the moment he'd finally say something, finally give me the words I'd been waiting for. "Your car is here," he said. I got in. The door closed, and I went home. For the next 6 weeks, I didn't hear from my family. This wasn't unusual. There had been stretches before, months, once an entire year, where we existed in separate orbits, connected only by the gravitational pull of obligation. Christmas cards, birthday texts, the occasional voicemail from my mother, always about some event I was expected to attend. Never about me. I cooked. That's what I do when life gets complicated. I cook. My staff learned not to ask questions when I started coming in earlier, staying later, tasting everything twice, when once had always been enough. They'd seen it before, the way I disappeared into work when the world outside the kitchen became too much. The restaurant ran. Reservations came in, reviews were written, some glowing, some critical, all of them adding to the conversation that I'd stopped paying attention to years ago. I didn't cook for reviews. I cooked because it was the only language I'd ever been fluent in, the only way I knew to express whatever was happening inside me. Julian Chen's business card sat in my desk drawer, untouched. I thought about throwing it away. I thought about calling the number on it, saying something, though I couldn't figure out what. In the end, I did neither. I just left it there, a small white rectangle in the darkness, waiting for something I couldn't name. December brought the first snow and a call from my mother. "Your sister's engagement dinner is next Saturday. We need you to be there." I was breaking down fish when she called. A beautiful whole turbot that had arrived that morning, flown in from the coast. My hands were covered in scales. My mind was on the sauce I was planning, and my mother's voice felt like an intrusion from a world I'd tried to forget. "I can't come on Saturday. We're fully booked." "This is family, Miriam. So is my staff. So are the people who made reservations 3 months ago." Silence. My mother's silences had always been deliberate things, designed to make me feel the weight of my own words. But I'd stopped carrying that weight years ago, or at least, I'd stopped letting her see me carry it. Lily was very hurt by what happened at the party. By what happened, or by what she said. She was upset, you can understand that. I can. I set down my knife. I can understand being upset. What I can't understand is why her being upset means I need to apologize for existing. No one asked you to apologize. Then what are you asking? Another silence, longer this time. I heard my mother take a breath, the kind of breath that usually preceded something important. "Julian has asked about you multiple times. Lily is concerned." "Concerned about what?" "About what you might have said to him. About whether you—" She stopped, started again. "He asked questions about your restaurant, about your career. It makes Lily uncomfortable." I laughed. I couldn't help it. The idea that I, the invisible sister, the embarrassment, the chef who made food for people I'd never be, could somehow threaten Lily's engagement to a billionaire was so absurd that laughter was the only possible response. "I didn't say anything, Mom. He came to me. He knows my work. I don't know why, and I don't know what he wants, but I didn't do anything to make it happen." "Then come to the dinner. Show Lily there's nothing to worry about. And if there isn't, if I come and he still asks questions and Lily is still uncomfortable, then what? Do I apologize for having a career? For being good at something?" Silence. "I'll think about it," I said. I hung up and went back to my fish. The thing about turbot is that it's forgiving. The flesh is dense enough to survive a small mistake, a few extra seconds of heat, a moment of distraction. Unlike some fish, delicate soul, temperamental red mullet, turbot gives you room to be human. I needed that room, that afternoon. I thought about Julian Chen while I worked, about the way he looked at me, not like I was beautiful or desirable or any of the things men usually wanted from women, but like I was someone who'd built something worth respecting. It had been so long since anyone in my family had looked at me that way that I'd forgotten what it felt like. Maybe that was the danger, not Julian's attention itself, but what it revealed about its absence everywhere else. I plated the turbot with brown butter and capers, a classic preparation, nothing fancy. Tasted it standing at the pass, alone in the kitchen while my prep cooks took their break. It was good, simple and good. The kind of food that didn't need to prove anything. I wished my life could be that simple. I didn't go to the engagement dinner. Instead, I called my sister. "What do you want?" Her voice was flat. Not angry anymore, which surprised me. Just tired, the way people get tired when they've been fighting something for too long. "To talk, if you want to." A pause. I heard rustling. She was probably at home, probably surrounded by wedding planning materials, probably in the middle of the life I wasn't part of. "I don't know what to say to you, Mira." "You don't have to say anything. I just wanted you to know that I'm not trying to take anything from you. I never was." "Then why did he look at you like that?" I didn't have an answer. How could I? I barely understood it myself. "I don't know," I said. "He knows about my restaurant. He's interested in food. Beyond that," I trailed off. I'm not a threat to you, Lily. I've never been a threat to you." "That's easy for you to say. You've always had your thing, your cooking, your awards, your little world where you're important. I've spent my whole life trying to find something like that, and every time I think I have it, something happens, something goes wrong." "And you think I'm what went wrong this time?" Silence, but not an angry silence. Something softer, something that might have been the beginning of honesty. "I don't know what I think," she said finally. "I know I love Julian. I know he's the best thing that's ever happened to me. And I know that when he looks at you, I feel like I'm disappearing." I understood that. I'd felt it my whole life, that slow fade into invisibility whenever Lily entered a room. The irony that she was feeling it now, for the first time, because of me, wasn't lost on me. "I won't come to the dinner," I said, "if that helps." "It doesn't matter. He already asked if you'd be there." "What did you tell him?" "I told him you were busy, that you always are." A pause. "He said he understood, that people who create things often sacrifice other things to do it. Then he asked more questions about your restaurant." I closed my eyes. "I'm sorry. Are you?" "I don't. No, I'm sorry you're hurting. I'm not sorry for who I am." "No," she said, something shifting in her voice. "I suppose you never have been." She hung up. I stood in my empty kitchen, listening to the silence, and tried to figure out what any of it meant. Winter passed the way winters do, slowly, coldly, one day bleeding into the next, until you forget what warmth felt like. I cooked, I slept, I woke up and cooked again. The restaurant continued its quiet success. A profile in a national magazine. A visit from a celebrity who asked to meet me, then talked about himself for 45 minutes while I nodded and calculated how long until I could get back to work. An inquiry from a culinary school about teaching a masterclass, which I declined because I couldn't figure out how to explain what I did in a way that anyone else could replicate. I didn't hear from Julian Chen. I didn't expect to. Whatever had happened at the party, that moment of recognition, of being seen, was probably just a flicker, a brief intersection of two lives that had no business intersecting. He was marrying my sister. He lived in a world of investments and acquisitions and whatever it was that billionaires did with their days. I lived in a world of heat and salt and timing. We had nothing in common except a single conversation about sauce. February brought Valentine's Day, which is a nightmare for restaurants. People who never eat out suddenly decide that this is the night to celebrate their love, clogging reservations, complaining about wait times, sending back dishes because they imagine something different. I hate Valentine's Day. I've hated it since culinary school, when a professor told us that holidays were amateur nights, and we had to rise above. I've hated it through every restaurant job I've ever worked, watching couples argue over wine lists while my staff ran themselves ragged in the back. But I do it anyway, because this is what we do: give people a space to celebrate, give people up, even when the celebration feels hollow to us. This year, I was in the kitchen when it happened. Chef, Daniel's voice, cutting through the noise. There's someone asking for you at the door. I'm busy. They said it's urgent, family emergency. My hands stopped moving. Family emergency could mean anything. My parents were in their 60s, healthy enough but not young, and the last time someone had used that phrase, my grandmother had died. I wiped my hands, told my sous chef to take over, walked out to the front of the restaurant, expecting to see my mother or some cousin I'd forgotten about. Julian Chen was standing in my entryway. I know I shouldn't be here. He looked different than he had at the party. Less polished. His coat was damp with snow, his hair disordered, his face carrying something I couldn't read. Then why are you? Because I needed to talk to you, and you never called. I glanced back at the dining room. Every table was full. Every member of my staff was working at capacity, the worst possible night for a conversation I didn't understand. I'm in the middle of service. I know, I'll wait. It'll be hours. I know. Something in his voice made me pause. Some note of desperation, or perhaps determination. It was hard to tell the difference. There's a coffee shop 2 blocks south. Go there, order something. I'll come when I can. He nodded, turned to leave, then stopped. Thank you, he said, for not saying no. I went back to my kitchen, finished the service, let my staff handle closing while I walked 2 blocks through the snow to a coffee shop I'd never been to, where a billionaire was sitting alone at a corner table waiting for me. I've called off the engagement. He said it before I even sat down. Said it the way you might say, it's raining, or I'm tired. A simple statement of fact, no drama, no buildup. I sat down anyway. When? This afternoon. I told Lily I couldn't marry her. Why? He looked at me, really looked. The way he had at the party, like he was trying to see something beyond the surface. Because I realized I was marrying her for the wrong reasons. Because she wanted the idea of me more than she wanted me. Because every time I tried to have a real conversation with her, she redirected it to something else. A wedding venue, a honeymoon destination, her mother's opinions on centerpieces. He paused. And because I haven't stopped thinking about you since November, I should have felt something. Triumph maybe, or vindication. All those years of being the lesser sister, and now here was proof that Lily didn't always win. But I didn't feel any of that. I just felt tired. You don't know me. I know, that's the point. I'm not interested in being someone's rebound from my sister. You wouldn't be. That's what I'm trying to explain. He leaned forward. I've spent 5 years building a company, working 80-hour weeks, letting relationships happen by convenience rather than choice. When I met your sister, she was easy. She fit into the life I'd constructed. She wanted what I could give her, and she didn't ask for anything more. That sounds like a compliment. It isn't, it's the opposite. He shook his head. I've eaten at restaurants all over the world, meals that cost more than some people make in a month, and none of them, not one, made me feel the way people describe feeling after eating your food. You created something that connects with people on a level I didn't know was possible. I've been chasing that feeling in my own work for years, and never found it. I make dinner, I said. It's not that complicated. It is. You just don't see it because you're inside it. He pulled something out of his pocket. A folded piece of paper, worn at the edges like it had been handled many times. This is a review of your restaurant from 3 years ago. I found it after the party. I've read it probably 50 times since then. He handed it to me. I unfolded it. It was from a food writer I remembered. A woman who'd come in alone, ordered the tasting menu, sat for 4 hours without saying a word. I'd noticed her because of her stillness, the way she approached each course like a meditation. To eat at Mira Chen's restaurant is to remember that food is not about sustenance, or even pleasure, but about translation. She takes what we cannot say and serves it back to us in a language we can taste. I left her table understanding things about myself I had forgotten I knew. I folded the paper, handed it back. It's a nice review. It's more than that. It's a description of something I've been looking for my whole life. Someone who speaks in meaning rather than just words. He met my eyes. I'm not asking you to date me. I'm not asking for anything. I just needed you to know that whatever you saw at that party, whatever made you run, wasn't about your sister losing something. It was about me finding something I didn't know I was missing. I sat with that for a long moment. The coffee shop was nearly empty, the snow falling steadily outside. The world shrunk down to this table and this conversation. Lily is going to hate me even more now, I said finally. She was always going to hate you. People who feel small around others usually do. She's my sister. I know, and I'm sorry for whatever this causes between you, but I couldn't marry her pretending I didn't feel what I feel. That would have been worse. I thought about Lily, about the party, the screaming, the years of being dismissed and diminished. I thought about my parents, who would hear about this and draw their own conclusions. I thought about all the ways this could go wrong. And then I thought about that review, about translation, about meaning. April, I said. The ramps will be ready in April. He nodded, didn't smile. This wasn't a moment for smiling, but something shifted in his expression, some tension releasing. I'll wait. You've been waiting 6 months already. I know, I'm getting good at it. I stood up, put on my coat, walked to the door. Julian, he looked up. Don't contact me before then. Don't call, don't text, don't show up. If this is real, it'll still be real in 2 months. And if it's not, then you'll know, and so will I. I walked out into the snow, back to my restaurant, back to my kitchen, my life, the small, quiet world I'd built for myself. 2 months. That was long enough to know if something was real, long enough to see if the feeling would fade, the way feelings usually did, long enough to figure out if I wanted any of this, the complication, the family fallout, the risk of opening a door I'd kept closed for so long. March was brutal. Lily called me every day for the first 2 weeks. I didn't answer. My mother called too, long voicemails full of blame and confusion, demanding explanations I couldn't give. What did you say to him? Her voicemails asked. What did you do? I didn't do anything, I wanted to say, but I knew she wouldn't believe me. Knew that in her narrative, I was the villain, the jealous sister who'd stolen what wasn't mine, who'd ruined the wedding, who'd finally revealed the darkness she'd always suspected was hiding under my quiet surface. The truth was more complicated. The truth was always more complicated. I cooked, I worked. I let the rhythms of the kitchen carry me through days that felt like wading through deep water. My staff watched me with careful eyes, saying nothing, giving me the space I needed but staying close enough to catch me if I fell. I didn't fall. I've never been the falling type. On the first day of April, a delivery arrived at the restaurant. It wasn't from Julian, that's what I thought at first. That it was some elaborate gesture, the kind of thing billionaires did in movies to prove their devotion. But the box was small, unmarked, and when I opened it, I found only a bundle of wild ramps wrapped in damp paper towel, still smelling. Of earth and snow, no card, no explanation. Just the first ramps of the season, appearing on the exact day I'd said they might arrive. I called my supplier. Who sent these? Sent what, chef? The ramps, the ones that showed up this morning. Those are from me, just like always. First of the season. I know you like to be the first to know. I hung up, stared at the ramps in my hands. Maybe it was coincidence. Maybe it was timing. Maybe the universe had decided to give me a sign, though I'd never believed in signs before. That night, I made the melody sauce for the first time that year. Brown butter, white miso, a splash of good sake. The first wild ramps folded in at the last moment. The flavors that shouldn't work but did. That was what Julian had said, that someone had told him the sauce was like hearing a song you'd always known but never heard before. I tasted it alone in my kitchen, after everyone else had gone home. It was good. It was always good. I didn't call Julian. That night, I waited 3 more days, watching the ramps come in stronger each morning, testing the sauce again and again until it was exactly right. Then I sat in my office, stared at his card, still in my desk drawer, where it had been all winter, and finally picked up my phone. The ramps are perfect, I said when he answered. I know. You know? I've been checking every day since February. Your supplier is very patient with people who ask annoying questions about vegetables. I laughed. It surprised me. I hadn't laughed in what felt like months. Saturday, I said. Come at closing. I'll cook for you. Just me? Just you. There was a pause, then. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, you haven't tasted the food. I already know what it'll taste like. You don't. I know it'll taste like something I've been waiting for. That's enough. I hung up, stared at the phone in my hand. Wondered what I was doing, whether I was making a terrible mistake, whether Lily would ever forgive me. Then I went back to my kitchen and started planning the meal. Saturday arrived the way Saturdays always arrive, with chaos and pressure and 100 small crises that had to be solved before service started. A delivery came late. A prep cook called in sick. The fish I'd ordered wasn't the quality I wanted, so I had to adjust the menu on the fly. By the time the last regular customer left, I was exhausted in the way I'd been exhausted for 16 years. The good exhaustion, the kind that meant I'd given everything I had. My staff cleared the dining room, set a single table in the corner by the window, lit the candles and dimmed the lights, and then, one by one, said goodnight and left me alone. At 11 o'clock, Julian knocked on the door. He looked different than he had in February. More rested, maybe, or more at peace. Something had shifted in the months between. He was wearing a simple shirt, dark jeans, no tie. The kind of outfit that said he'd thought about it, but didn't want to look like he'd thought about it. "Hi," he said. "Hi." I led him to the table, poured him a glass of wine, something light, something that would complement what I'd planned without overwhelming it. "No menu," he observed. "No, you'll eat what I make." "I was hoping you'd say that." I went back to the kitchen, started the first course, a clear broth infused with the first nettles of spring, barely warm, served in a handleless cup, meant to be held with both hands. He drank it slowly, didn't speak, didn't need to. I could see his reaction in the way his shoulders dropped, the tension leaving his body. Course 2, the ramps, simply prepared, roasted until the whites were soft and the greens were just beginning to crisp. No sauce, not yet. Course 3, a single scallop, seared perfectly, resting on a pool of pea puree so green it looked artificial, though every color on the plate was exactly as nature intended. I watched him from the kitchen doorway. He ate the way I hoped people would eat, slowly, attentively, like each bite was a conversation. Course 4, the spot prawns I'd been holding for this meal, barely cooked through, served with the melody sauce. This was the one. The dish that had started all of this. The reason he'd wanted a reservation, the thing he'd been chasing for 6 months. He lifted his fork, took a bite, closed his eyes, and for a long moment, neither of us moved. It's better than I imagined. I was sitting across from him now, the formal service abandoned, just 2 people and a table and the remnants of a meal. "Most things are," I said. "Better or worse. Imagination is just approximation." "Is that why you cook? To get past approximation?" I thought about it. Thought about all the reasons I'd ever given for why I did what I did. The simple answers I told journalists, the complicated ones I told myself. I cook because it's the only way I know how to say certain things. Things that don't have words. Like what? Like, I stared at my hands, the same hands that had made tonight's meal, that had made every meal for 16 years, that had never learned how to hold anything that wasn't food-related. Like the fact that I grew up invisible, like the fact that I spent my whole life being told I was less than, and somewhere along the way, I found this thing, this language of heat and salt and time, that let me matter to people who never knew my name. You matter to me, and I know your name. You know my work, that's not the same thing. Isn't it? Isn't the work the thing you're trying to say? I looked at him. Really looked. The way I rarely let myself look at anyone. He was watching me with that same intensity he'd had at the party. Like he was trying to see past the surface, past the chef, past the invisible sister, to whatever was underneath. "I don't know how to do this," I said. "Do what?" "This. Whatever this is, I've spent my whole adult life building something, and I never left. Room for..." I stopped. Tried again. "The restaurant is everything. It's all I have. It's all I know how to be. I'm not asking you to be anything else." "Then what are you asking?" He set down his wine glass, leaned forward. "I'm asking if there's space in your life for someone who wants to understand the things you don't say, who wants to sit in your restaurant and eat your food and know that somewhere in that kitchen, you're speaking a language I'm just beginning to learn. That's a lot of asking. I know, but you told me to wait 2 months. I waited, and I'm still here." Outside, the city was quiet in that particular way cities get quiet after midnight. Not silence, but something close. The candles had burned down. The wine was nearly gone. "I can't promise anything," I said. "I'm not asking for promises. I'm asking for a chance." I thought about Lily, about my parents, about all the ways this would complicate a life I'd worked so hard to keep simple. Then I thought about the melody sauce, about flavors that shouldn't work but did, about the song you'd always known but never heard before. Okay, I said. He smiled. Not triumphantly, not like he'd won something, just smiled, like I'd given him a gift he hadn't expected. Okay? Okay, we can try. It's been 6 months since that dinner. I don't know what to call what Julian and I have. We're not dating exactly. I hate that word. Hate the way it reduces everything to categories and labels. We're something else, something that doesn't have a name yet. He comes to the restaurant 3 times a week, sometimes for dinner, sometimes just to sit in the kitchen and watch me work. He's learned not to talk when I'm cooking, learned to read my moods by the way I move through the space. He brings me articles about food science and obscure ingredients. He asks questions about my process that no one else has ever thought to ask. And sometimes, late at night, we talk about other things, about his work, which is more complicated than I'd understood, about my family, which is exactly as complicated as I'd always known, about what it means to build something and whether it's possible to build something with another person without losing yourself in the process. My family doesn't speak to me anymore. I expected this, prepared for it, as much as you can prepare for the loss of people who never really knew you anyway. Lily sends occasional text messages, brief, venomous, always late at night when I imagine she's had too much wine. My mother called once, at the beginning, to tell me I'd chosen something over family. I didn't choose anything, I said. I just stopped pretending to be less than I am. She hung up. Hasn't called since. My father sent me a letter, handwritten, which surprised me. I didn't know he still wrote by hand. It was short. It said, I read about your 3rd Michelin star. Congratulations. I don't understand your life, but I can see you've built something of value. That's more than most people manage. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't reconciliation. But it was something, the first acknowledgement in 37 years that my father saw me. I keep the letter in my desk drawer next to Julian's business card. Last week, I created a new dish. It's a simple thing, a clear consommé made from bones I've been roasting for days, served with a single dumpling floating in the center. The dumpling is filled with a mixture I've never made before: preserved lemon, aged parmesan, a touch of white miso, and something else. Something that took me months to figure out. The something else is hard to describe. It's a compound butter, made with ingredients that shouldn't go together: fish sauce and brown butter and the first spring herbs, all emulsified into something that tastes like nothing I've ever tasted before. When the dumpling is bitten, the butter melts into the consommé, transforming it from something simple into something layered, complex, strange. Julian was the first person to taste it. He took a bite, set down his spoon, looked at me with that expression I've come to know, the one that says he's trying to find words for something that doesn't have words. What is this called? He asked. I don't know yet. I'm still working on it. It tastes like, he stopped, started again. It tastes like finding something you lost, like recognizing someone in a crowd. That's what I was going for. How do you do that? How do you make food taste like an idea? I shrugged. I've never known how to explain it. It's just what happens when I cook. The feelings I can't say find their way into the dishes, translating themselves into flavors that other people can understand. I think I'll call it homecoming, I said. Even though it's made with ingredients from all over the world, home isn't a place, it's recognition, it's finding someone who speaks your language. I looked at him. It's eating a dumpling in a restaurant with no name and realizing you're exactly where you're supposed to be. He smiled, finished his consommé. And later that night, as we sat together in my small apartment above the restaurant, watching the lights of the city through windows that needed cleaning, he said something that I've been turning over in my mind ever since. You know what I love most about you? What? You never stop translating, even when no one's watching, even when no one's eating. You're always finding new ways to say the things that matter. Is that a compliment? It's an observation. The compliment is that I get to be here while you do it. I didn't say anything. There was nothing to say. But I reached across the space between us and took his hand, and we sat there in the quiet. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel invisible. I felt like exactly what I've always been. A chef, a translator, a person who makes meaning out of heat and salt and time. just a chef. But also, finally, something more. Last night, my mother sent me an email. I haven't opened it yet. It's sitting in my inbox, subject line blank, sent at 2:47 a.m., a time that tells me she was awake when she should have been sleeping, thinking thoughts she couldn't hold until morning. Maybe it's another accusation. Maybe it's an apology. Maybe it's something in between, some careful construction of words designed to reopen a door without admitting it was ever closed. I'll read it eventually, or I won't. The thing about building a life on your own terms is that you get to decide what conversations you're willing to have, and when and whether the timing ever feels right. For now, I'm standing in my kitchen, watching the morning light filter through the windows, preparing for another day of doing the only thing I've ever known how to do well. The ramps are gone for the season. Spring has moved on, the way spring always does, leaving behind the promise of summer and all the ingredients that come with it. I've been dreaming of peaches, the first ones, not quite ripe, tart enough to cut through rich sauces and stand up to grilled meat. I've been thinking about a dish that captures the feeling of August even though it's only May. Something that anticipates warmth the way certain memories anticipate joy. Julian will be here tonight. He always is on Saturdays, sitting at his corner table with a book he never reads, watching me work through the kitchen window. We haven't talked about the future. We haven't made plans or promises or any of the things that people in relationships are supposed to make. What we have is dinner and conversation and the slow accumulation of understanding that happens when two people choose to pay attention to each other. Maybe that's enough. Maybe it's everything. I don't know. I've never known what love is supposed to look like. Not the romantic movie version, not the fairy tale ending my sister always wanted, but I know what this feels like coming home to a language I didn't know I spoke. Like finding the missing ingredient in a recipe I've been working on my whole life. I pick up my knife, start breaking down the vegetables for today's mise en place. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I begin composing the meal I'll make tonight. Not for the customers, not for the reviews, not for anyone but Julian and me. A translation of something I can't say any other way. A message I hope he receives. 2 weeks later, I opened my mother's email. It said, "I made your bisque last night. The one from Grandma's recipe, the one you improved. I couldn't get it right, the color was wrong, too flat, missing something. Then I remembered what you told me once years ago about adding sherry at the end, about watching for the amber. I tried it. It worked. I thought you should know. That was all. No apology, no reconciliation, just an admission that she'd tried my way and it had worked." I stared at the email for a long time, thought about all the things it didn't say, all the things it couldn't say after so many years of silence. Thought about my mother alone in her kitchen at some late hour, trying to recreate a dish she'd dismissed as interesting when I'd first made it 20 years ago. Then I wrote back, "Next time, add a pinch of white pepper at the very end. It's not in the recipe, but it should be. It's what Grandma would have done if she'd known." I hit send before I could overthink it. It's not forgiveness. It's not even the beginning of forgiveness. I'm not sure I'm ready for that, or if I'll ever be, but it's something. A small translation passed between two people who've never learned to speak the same language. Maybe that's all any of us can do. Keep trying to say the things that matter, one small gesture at a time, hoping that eventually the meaning comes through. The night everything changed again. It was a Thursday in September, not busy enough to require my full attention, but busy enough to keep me moving. Julian was at his usual table, finishing the tasting menu, when he stood up and walked to the kitchen window. "Mira." I looked up from the sauce I was finishing. "What?" "Come here for a second." Something in his voice made me set down my spoon. I walked to the window, wiping my hands on my apron. "What is it?" "I have something to show you." He pulled out his phone, opened an email, handed it to me. The message was from a real estate developer I'd never heard of, with an attachment showing architectural renderings of a building I didn't recognize. The building was beautiful. Clean lines, industrial windows, the kind of space that made you want to walk inside just to see what it felt like. "What is this?" "It's a property I bought 3 years ago, before I met Lily, before I met you. I never knew what to do with it, so it's been sitting empty." He pointed to the renderings. "I want to give it to you." I stared at the phone, At the building, which was twice the size of my current restaurant with a kitchen larger than I'd ever imagined having. I can't accept that. I know, that's not what I'm asking. He took the phone back, closed the email. I'm asking if you'd be willing to design a new space. Not with my money, I know better than to try that. But the building is there, empty, and you could rent it from me at whatever rate makes sense. Make it what you want. Build something bigger than what you have now. Why? Because you've outgrown your space. Because the waiting list is a year long and you have people sleeping on benches outside, hoping for cancellations. Because, he paused, because I believe in what you do and I want to help make it bigger. I looked at the architectural rendering again, thought about everything it would mean, the expansion, the risk, the chance to create something on a scale I'd never attempted. I'll think about it, I said. That's all I'm asking. He went back to his table. I went back to my sauce. But the rest of the night, my mind kept wandering to that building, imagining what it could become. 6 months later, the new space. I'm standing in the middle of an empty building that will soon be my restaurant. The renovations have just begun, exposed brick everywhere, tall windows that will eventually look out onto a courtyard garden. A kitchen that takes up nearly a quarter of the total square footage. Julian is beside me, holding the blueprints, pointing out details I've asked for and details I haven't. The latter are always better, always exactly what I didn't know I wanted. The walk-in cooler will go here, he says, pointing, and we've added an extra prep station like you asked. What's that? I gesture to a small space in the corner, separate from the main kitchen. Chef's table, 8 seats, private dining but visible from your station so you can watch their reactions. I stare at the space, at the possibilities contained in empty rooms and unfinished walls. Thank you, I say. The words feel inadequate, but they're all I have. You don't have to thank me. You're paying rent. Not for this, I wave my hand at everything, at nothing. For believing in something you can't see yet. He looks at me. I can see it. I've always been able to see it. That's the whole point. I nod. We stand in silence, surrounded by the dust and noise of construction, imagining the meals that will be cooked here, the conversations that will be had, the stories that will begin in this space we're building together. The opening, October. My parents came to the opening. I didn't invite them. I hadn't spoken to my mother in person since that email about the bisque, hadn't spoken to my father since his letter about the Michelin star. But someone must have told them, because there they were, standing in the entryway of my new restaurant, looking around at the space like they'd never seen anything like it. My mother found me first. Mira. She said my name carefully, like she was testing whether it still fit in her mouth. This is impressive. Thank you. A pause. The kind of pause my mother used to deploy strategically, but this one felt different, uncertain rather than calculated. I'm sorry, she said. I waited. I'm sorry for not understanding, for making you feel like what you did wasn't valuable, she stopped, started again. I made your bisque again last week. The white pepper helped. I think I'm finally getting close to the way you make it. You'll get there. Will you show me, sometime? I looked at my mother, really looked, the way I rarely had growing up. She was smaller than I remembered. Older, something in her eyes had changed. Some hardness softened into something that might have been humility. Yes, I said, I'll show you. She nodded, touched my arm briefly, the first physical contact we'd had in over a year. Then she moved off into the crowd, finding my father, finding a table where they could sit and experience the meal I'd created. I went back to my kitchen, back to the thing I do, the only thing I've ever known how to do. But something had shifted. Some door that had been closed for so long had opened, just a crack, letting in light I hadn't expected. Now, it's been 2 years since that party, 2 years since my sister screamed that I was just a chef, since Julian walked past her and came to me, since everything changed. Lily got married last spring, not to Julian, to someone else, a man she met at a charity event, someone I've never met and probably never will. My mother sent me pictures, which I looked at once and then deleted. Lily looked happy, or at least she looked like someone performing happiness, which might be the same thing. I wasn't invited. I didn't expect to be. Julian and I got married quietly at the restaurant, after closing one Saturday night. It was just us and the officiant and 2 witnesses from my kitchen staff. No family, no fanfare, no ceremony beyond the words and the signing. Afterward, we sat at the chef's table and ate a meal I'd prepared in advance. A tasting menu of all his favorite dishes from the past 2 years, each one a chapter in the story we'd built together. "This is the melody sauce," he said, tasting the spot prawns. "You remember?" "How could I forget? It's the reason I'm here." I watched him eat. Watched the way his eyes closed on the first bite, the way his shoulders dropped, the way his whole body seemed to relax into the experience. "Thank you," I said. "For what?" "For seeing me, for waiting, for not giving up when everyone said you should." He set down his fork, took my hand. I was never going to give up. Some things are worth waiting for. I thought about that, about all the waiting I'd done, waiting to be seen, waiting to be valued, waiting for my family to understand what I'd built, and about all the waiting Julian had done, 6 months for a reservation, 2 months for a chance, 2 years for everything else. "I'm glad you waited," I said. "I'm glad you let me." We finished the meal together, cleared the table ourselves, walked upstairs to the apartment we now shared, the same apartment where I'd lived alone for so many years. And somewhere in the city below, in restaurants and homes and kitchens of all kinds, people were cooking, making meals that spoke the things they couldn't say, translating feelings into flavors, memories into recipes, love into food. I am one of them. I always have been. Just a chef, but also, finally, everything else. The end, which is also a beginning. Last night, I dreamed about a dish I've never made. In the dream, I was standing in a kitchen that didn't exist, larger than my new restaurant, filled with equipment I didn't recognize. And I was making something from ingredients I'd never seen before. The dish was beautiful, impossibly so, and when I tasted it, I understood immediately what it meant. It meant everything I've been trying to say, everything I've ever felt, ever wanted, ever hoped for. It was the perfect translation, the complete expression, the meal that contained within it the answer to every question I'd ever asked. When I woke up, I couldn't remember the recipe. This is how it goes, I think. We spend our lives chasing something we glimpsed in a dream, something we can't quite remember but can't quite forget. We build and we create and we translate, hoping that someday we'll find the words, or the flavors, or the gestures, or whatever language we speak, to say what we mean. We never quite get there. That's the point. The reaching is the thing. The trying is the thing. The constant, endless, beautiful attempt to turn feeling into form, to make something that matters out of nothing but heat and salt and time. I got out of bed, went down to the kitchen, started a pot of stock. Julian found me there an hour later, standing over the stove, watching the liquid slowly change color as it simmered. "New recipe?" he asked. "I don't know yet. I'm still figuring it out. Let me know when you do." "I will." He kissed my forehead, made coffee, sat at the counter with his book. The same routine we've had for 2 years now. Him reading, me cooking, both of us together in a kitchen that smells like morning and possibility. I am still figuring it out. I always will be. That's the whole point.